I've actually found my purpose throughout this whole kind of experience. And I never knew what I wanted to be or what my calling was. But through just everything that I've gone through, I've discovered what actually I need to do in my life. And I'm thankful for that above everything else. So, yeah.
All right, guys, welcome to the Addiction Mindset Recovery Coaching YouTube channel. Today, I am here with a guest, Labo, who's going to share some of her experience with us regarding cannabis use and what sounds like your journey to quitting using cannabis. So, yeah. Labo, first question for me, first question for you, I should say, rather. How was it that you originally got into cannabis in the first place? Tell me a little bit about your history with cannabis and using it.
Okay, well, hello, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Frank. And I started smoking cannabis, I think it was 2017. I was going through a bit of a breakup, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was going through a breakup, and one of my guy friends was like, listen, you look down and out. Let's go have a smoke. So I was like, I've never smoked before. He was like, what? I was like, no. So he was like, come try it. So I was like, okay, why not? So I distinctly remember my first high when I smoked a joint. I remember just feeling like, I can't even describe the feeling. I just felt like I was on a cloud. And I remember feeling my body relaxed. I'd never felt my body relaxed like that. And just even my mind felt free. It was just such a liberating sensation, to be honest. And then after that, I was like, okay, I think I like this.
This is a good feeling. Yes, of course.
Yeah, it was a good feeling. But it was also scary because of the loss of control that you have with your mind, because anything just comes up. So it was quite scary also. But I think because he was reassuring and he was like, no, just relax. So it wasn't like a bad trip or anything. So I actually had a good experience for my first time.
That sounds very, it's funny when I look back at my first experience with it. Well, the first time I smoked, I don't know how much I really got out of it, but I know the second time, which I really call my first time, I was with 4 friends. And I had never laughed that hard. Like you said, there was kind of just this overall stress relief. It was a really, really pleasant first experience that I had. Okay. Yeah. So, and how, if you don't mind me asking, how old were you at that time when that happened back in 2017?
Okay. So 2017 is what? I must have been 22, 23. No, okay. Actually younger than that. I must have been 21, 22. Yes.
So that's very close to right around the same age I started using. I talked to a lot of people, and they started when they were very young, 13 years old, 14 years old. Yeah, you were in your 20s, as was I. Okay. So after that, you had this positive experience. And then did you get into smoking a lot or consuming cannabis a lot right away? Or was it kind of a slow buildup of consumption over the years?
It was a slow buildup, because after that initial time when I'd smoked weed with this one friend of mine, I started hanging out with him now a lot, because firstly, I didn't know where to get weed, and I didn't know how to roll my weed. So I was literally a novice. So he was basically teaching me and showing me what to do, how to do, who to know. So it was quite gradual. And then I stopped for a while, actually, because then I met my ex-husband, and he's Muslim. So he was like, we don't smoke weed. That's not acceptable. So then I quit. So that was 2000 and same year, actually, funny. So 2017, I started smoking weed 2017, stopped 2017 within maybe after 6 months or so. And then I started up again in 2019. And then from there, I started smoking almost every day, twice a day, just smoking like crazy.
And what do you think resulted in the everyday, twice a day smoking? What do you think spiked that so much? Was it following a relationship? Yeah, what spiked that?
Again, it's just funny because when I started, it was a relationship breakup. and then I stopped because I got married, and then I separated from my husband. So then I started smoking because I also went into like a deep depression. So I just felt really suicidal also. I felt really low. So just a lot was happening. And I just remembered that, listen, I could smoke and I could feel better because I wasn't feeling better. And also, I don't really like pharmaceuticals. I don't like Western medication so much. So I was like, this is a natural herb. It's plant medicine. So it's probably going to help me. So I started smoking. Yeah, and then it went from being enjoyable to being torturous during that period also.
And what would you say made it torturous? So I can definitely relate to this. I think a lot of people listening will kind of nod their heads and relate to that. But what made it go from something that was enjoyable, stress relieving, taking your mind off of this separation,
Yeah.
and even taking you away from suicidal ideation stuff? What
Yeah.
started to make it torturous? Where did that, like, what was so torturous about it?
Well, okay, so initially when I was smoking, it was a form of escapism. I was trying to get out of my emotions and my feelings, and in essence out of my mind, right? But like I said, because it's a psychedelic plant, whatever comes up, and you can't really stop it in the moment. So all the things that I was trying to avoid and all of the things that I was trying to suppress just came to the surface. And what I realized now, I don't even know why the switch happened, because it felt like it happened overnight. 1 minute or one day I was smoking weed and it was fine. The next day when I was smoking weed, I started having heart palpitations. It first started as heart palpitations, and I thought I was dying. I literally thought I was dying up until I got on the Googler and I was like, oh, people are like, this is normal, this happens. So I was like, what is going on? And then after that, anxiety now I started feeling really anxious, really paranoid. I literally could not relax. I was hearing voices. I was just uneasy. And yeah, I was just really, really uncomfortable. And I just think it was the fact that I wasn't dealing with my inner self in a healthy way. I felt like you could use something for so long, but it's not like a long term healing mechanism or healing tool. So for me, I feel like even with the suicidal ideation, I actually attempted suicide twice and I was still smoking during that time. And if anything, I feel like my suicidal thoughts were actually way more amplified when I was on weed than when I wasn't. So, which is quite strange. I found that quite strange because I was smoking to feel at peace, but I wasn't at peace anymore. I felt like I was tormenting myself literally by just smoking. Even just rolling a joint, I just start getting anxious before even smoking because I knew what was going to happen. So maybe it's also psychological. Maybe I was kind of recreating the same experience because I had it in my subconscious mind. I'm not too sure, but it was horrible.
That does sound torturous, and thank you for explaining that so clearly and being so honest. That's wild. Like that's horrible. Now, before I continue on this side of things, I do want to go backwards for a second. So here you are, it's becoming torturous, and you're probably getting some red flags going off. Like, okay, this is becoming a problem. I want to go back though to 2017 when you quit, real quick. That first time when you stopped. Before we talk about this time when you stopped, did you have a hard time stopping, or no? Was it just kind of like, okay, I'm into this guy, I want to stop, and that's it, I'm done with it?
It wasn't that hectic because also I think I might have, because I used to also smoke cigarettes.
Yeah.
So I stopped smoking weed and then I started smoking cigarettes again. And then, so it wasn't that, even though it's not the same thing, because you don't get the same experience and it's two different substances, but I don't actually even recall any kind of withdrawals that I can recall having. I don't recall like having a difficult time. I think my ex-husband was like, listen, in this home, we don't do certain things and I'm going to need you to stop. So like I stopped cold turkey. There was no like lost joints or anything.
Yep, that
and
was it.
I was fine. yeah, I was fine. I didn't have an issue. I don't recall having like a reaction to it.
Okay. Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Now we'll come back to the back to where we left off. So here you are.
Yeah.
You're noticing that the negative thoughts are being amplified with cannabis use, and it sounds like you're well aware of this. Even you said when you'd be rolling up or getting ready to smoke, there's almost anxiety, like, oh, I know what's going to happen. So okay,
Yeah, definitely.
you realize that it's starting to become a problem. What happens next? Do you start to quit then? Do you continue on that path for a while? Yeah, kind of what happens
Mhm.
next?
So I started experiencing these symptoms and these feelings. So I stopped. So I stop, and then after stopping, I'm telling my friends about this now, and I'm telling other people that I smoke with that, guys, I don't know about you, but this is what I'm going through when I smoke, because they don't. I haven't heard anyone talking about any negative experience they've had smoking. So I'm trying to now find information to find, is it a me thing or is it a cannabis thing, or do other people share kind of the same experience? So I'm asking people, other people are saying they've experienced the same things, but it subsides after a while. So I thought, okay, cool, it'll subside. I just need to smoke more, maybe exposure therapy, I'll be fine. So I continued smoking, but also in the same breath, my anxiety, I actually had a panic attack during also smoking, because I've never experienced a panic attack, but I had one during that time. So I stopped, and then after stopping, I would feel miserable, so I'd smoke again. So at some point, I was like, I don't care how I feel, I just want to be high. So I just used to smoke. And I remember also the people around me telling me and my friends, because whenever they would smoke, I'd always say, no, I'm okay. And they'd be like, what's your problem? And then I'd explain to them that, listen, this is what I'm going through. And they'd be like, no, you around us, you'll be fine, just smoke. So I also found, though, that when I was smoking with like a group of friends, I didn't experience the same kind of intense feelings than if I was smoking by myself. So now I would make sure that I'd get around like a group of friends, and then we'd smoke together, because they'd be talking, we'd be laughing. So I was distracted even then. I was relaxed, but I realized that I had to do it with someone there. I couldn't smoke alone anymore.
Otherwise, it would become problematic for you. Okay. Now, and at this point of your life, if you don't mind me asking, and if not, no need to share it or whatever, but like, were you working at this point? Are you busy at the house? Like, what else do you have going on at this point in your life while you're trying to manage this kind of weed
Right.
situation? Did you have
Yes.
any other things going on at this time, or not so much?
Well, yeah. Well, also, I think after because my ex-husband lives in England, so I moved from South Africa and went to
Oh,
live in the UK for a bit. So when I came back, and I had a job before I left, and I quit my job because I was going to follow my husband. And when I came back, it was like just really depressing for me, because I left a really good job. Like, even my boss was like to me, listen, think about it. Do you really want to leave? It was like a whole thing. And so I felt like just really stupid and idiotic, and felt like a failure also. And so my confidence and the way I thought about myself really took a knock. And I just wasn't confident to face people, because now people would ask me, we thought you were gone. What happened? You were married. So people can be quite intrusive with their questions. And especially with when it comes to getting married, especially with Black people and in African culture, if you're going to go through like a divorce or whatever, it's like you failed at something. And just the certain language that was spoken to me during that time was quite hurtful. And yeah, it just made me feel like really bad about myself. So um, during that time, my mom was really quite stressed, and so she was like, listen, you need to do something. You can't just give up on yourself. So I started learning how to sew, I can sew. So my mom was like, okay, listen, just do something in the interim before you figure yourself out, because I can see you going through something. So why don't you start sewing? So then she helped me kind of establish a small business, and I was sewing school uniform for kids around our area. And yeah, so that keeps me busy because I had to do like material runs, I had to sew, I had to do all kinds of stuff. So it was good for a bit and it kept me a bit occupied, but still not really a good distraction, because again, you work alone, right? You normally, when you sew, you work alone. So again, it's an isolating thing because I'm by myself most of the time. So I'd still have thoughts, and then also I want to say that during that time, a lot of my childhood trauma came to the surface. Things that I'd been suppressing kind of just blew up. And even dealing with that was a shock to my system, because I really didn't know how to process my emotions. And yeah, I think I was just really not even in my head during that time when I think about it now, because I've got clarity now. I think I was just in survival mode, because I can't actually recall, like, because when I think about it now, I'm like, it shouldn't have been such a big deal. You could have just, you didn't have to kind of be so depressed or whatever, but I just couldn't help it. And I think a lot's just happened. I don't know because I don't know about you and I don't know about other people, but I find that like when you smoke cannabis, it opens doors that you probably weren't aware that were closed, and experiences and emotions that you weren't really like open to maybe. So for me, it was a door that opened a lot of unhealed things and things that weren't I wasn't okay with. So yeah, that was
That's an
really hectic.
That's an interesting thought to think of it too, because when you were saying that, I was thinking, yeah, it can open doors, and some of those doors might be good doors, but some of those doors might be doors where it's like, oops, wait a minute, I closed that for a reason, and
Yeah,
now here we are again.
yeah,
You worded that very, very beautifully. Okay, now this brings me to my next thought, and that is a lot. There's no question. That's a lot to go through as a person. Like,
yeah,
that's a lot. Now, with
yeah,
that being said, which I would never know talking to you today, this is our first time meeting in this interview, right? Like, I would never know
yeah,
any of that talking to you now, which is always amazing meeting people, what they go through and how they come out on the other side of it.
yeah,
Okay, so you're
yeah.
sewing now. What is the point where you decide, okay, I'm going to stop using cannabis again? What was that point? What brought you to that point? Yeah, and I don't
Yeah.
want to say breaking point because some people don't have like a breaking point. Just what was the point that brought you to like, I'm going to stop again?
Okay, I definitely had a breaking point.
Okay.
I definitely experienced a breaking point. So I've been smoking, I've been dealing with all of these things and whatnot and whatnot. I think also during this time, what's this? My mom got sick. So she got sick, and then I had to assume like a caretaking role for her. So that to me was the catalyst to actually stop smoking, because um, after, just hold on a second.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So
you're
what
good.
happened was, yeah, so what happened was my mom got sick, and then I had to take care of her, and I basically had to do it alone. Like, it was a really tough place to be, because I don't know, and I empathize and I sympathize with anybody who has to take care of somebody who's ill and you're doing it by yourself with no help. My heart goes out to each and everyone who actually experiences that, because it's the most challenging and tough thing ever, because you're helping someone, but at the same time you are being triggered, you feel frustrated, you feel annoyed, you feel all of these emotions. And especially when it comes with a parent and you've got unhealed childhood traumas, you have a lot of anger and resentment. So I felt a lot of anger and resentment towards my mom. And yeah, it came to a head where I just realized that this is unhealthy, because what would happen would I would only be able to be around her if I'd smoke. So if I was sober, I wouldn't be able to like be around. So I had to make sure that I'm high all of the time. So after that, I realized that this is a problem if I can't be around her if I am high all the time. Because if I'm high, then I'm relaxed. I don't have an issue. We're good. I do whatever I need to do. And there's sort of like a buffer in between how I really feel, because emotions are being suppressed, so I'm not really experiencing how I'm experiencing or how I'm feeling in like real time. So, and then after a while, that also didn't work. Then even when I was high, I would still have these feelings of anxiety and anger and resentment. And then I found that even when I would express how I'd feel, it was dismissed. Um, my feelings weren't heard, and I felt just, how can I put this? I felt like I was the problem. I felt like whatever I'd gone through wasn't so much of a big deal, because, again, in an African aspect, Black people, we don't really talk about like therapy and mental health. The only thing that they chop it up to is you being dramatic and you are attention seeking and you are probably demon possessed. That's what like, we'll pray for you. We'll pray for you, you'll be fine. They don't actually understand that there's like a chemical imbalance, there's actual like real issues with like our minds, right? So, and also in African culture, it's like the more you can kind of shoulder and stomach, the better. Nobody really gets any props for complaining. If you complain, then you're the problem. We're not the problem. The situation is not the problem. What you're going through is not a problem. You're the problem because you are doing or you are unable to cope like every other person in our family or in our society is coping. And I would beg to say that's not true, because a lot of, especially in South Africa, a lot of youth is smoking, drinking, high levels of alcohol consumption and drug consumption to indicate that there are issues, they're just not talking about it. So I also found that in this society and in our country, it's better for me to go out and drink every weekend with my friends instead of telling my family that I didn't like this, the way you're treating me is not okay, I don't like the way you're speaking to me. They would rather have me be drunk than me speak about how I'm feeling. So, yeah, so after that, I was just like, okay, this is not working. I need to find healthier ways of dealing with, because I'm clearly going through something and it's not going away. So I stopped, and then yeah, I think it was just that time with my mom, and just we had a real, I can't, how can I put it? We had a how can I say this? We had a blow up. I'll call it a blow up.
Yep.
We had a blow up, and I knew that things would never be the same after that, and they haven't been. So after that, I realized that okay, certain things need to change, but the biggest thing that I think I need to change for myself is I need to stop weed. I need to stop smoking cannabis, because I hadn't had clarity or a clear mind in such a long time. I always felt like it was fogged and it was cluttered. So I just decided that this is not working. I need to stop. And so I did.
So you stop on your own. And this is fascinating too, because hearing you talk about your culture and your community and stuff like that, it sounds like the support, even if you had reached out for it, isn't really there. That access to that isn't really there. So that to me is really fascinating. Because it's so different. Here,
the thing
like
is, sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead, please.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I feel like it's okay. We do have mental health professionals. We've got therapists, social workers, psychologists. We've got all of these professionals that are there to help us, right? But there's also a huge stigma because in my family, I'm the only one who has, my family has seen me battle through depression. They've seen me being anxious. They've seen me kind of exhibit this behavior that is foreign to them. So even if I'm making the most perfect sense, whatever I say will be followed by, "Oh, but why don't you go speak to your therapist? Do you need to go see it? Do you need an appointment? Should we book you an appointment?" And I'm like, it's quite condescending, and it's the way they respond to it is not really healthy. And if anything, it would deter someone from actually having or knowing, or people knowing that you are seeing like a mental health professional. So maybe I would have gone to a therapist, but maybe I wouldn't have told them that I'm going to one, because by telling them, I felt like me needing that type of help was weaponized against me. And that was quite hurtful, actually.
That's a really interesting perspective. And you make me think about when I'm speaking to other people too on these topics. I think there could be even a similar thing that I've seen with other people. You worded that so well. Okay. So that brings us back to this. So here you are. You now quit. And did you have a hard time stopping this time around, or no?
Horrible. So by the time that I am officially quitting, I was smoking around 4 to 6 joints a day. That's how much I was smoking. So when I decided to stop cold turkey, because I knew that I wouldn't be the type of person who would smoke occasionally or at night or during certain, it just wouldn't work. So when I did stop, the withdrawals, horrible, 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 horrible. I remember not being able to eat for about 3 weeks. I couldn't sleep for about, 3 weeks. My body, I had body aches. I had all of these things that were going on in my like mind and in my head, and it was just, it was just horrible, horrible,
And,
horrible, horrible. I think
and
that's the time that I realized that weed is addictive. Before then, I didn't actually believe that it could be addictive. I thought it's media propaganda, they just whatever, pharmaceutical companies. But after that experience, I was like, okay, this is actually real, and this is serious, and this is, it's hectic.
and during this time, are you still a caretaker for your mother during this time while you're going through the withdrawal?
Okay, so no. So after the blow up, one of her cousins took her for a bit to take care of her. So I was actually going through this now by myself. She wasn't there. I wasn't caretaking. So I was just experiencing this by myself. Nobody was around during that time.
Okay, which could be either a blessing or a curse, depending on the person. And not having support, not good. But sometimes it's like, okay, maybe I'm better off being alone because, so it just depends on the person. Okay, so you go through all this. It sounds like about 3 weeks, 4 weeks of pretty torturous withdrawal symptoms. Okay, so you're going through these withdrawals for about a 3 to 4 week period of time, maybe longer. And eventually, maybe things started to take a positive direction for you, or no. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Okay, so I think every person's experience is unique to them. I didn't really have like, I remember going through the withdrawals, and when I was going through them, I realized that, okay, so I don't want to experience this again. So I'm definitely certain that I'm not going to smoke again. So after making that decision, I then obviously the symptoms tapered off, and then I started getting my appetite back again, because food is quite like enjoyable when you're high. It's like the most incredible taste ever. You could eat plain salty cracker, but I don't know, it tastes so amazing. So even adjusting to my normal palate, because I'd been so accustomed to having munchies and eating whilst high or coming down from a high, even because I love music. So even listening to music again now sober, because music again sounds incredible when you're high, because you hear all of the sounds and the beats and the instruments that you wouldn't typically, your ear is not like able to catch. But for some odd reason, when you're high, it opens up so many, your senses are truly heightened. So just having that adaptation to, okay, I'm no longer high, I am sober now, and this is actually how food tastes like, and I need to start enjoying that. And this is how music actually sounds like when I'm sober. So I need to also start enjoying that, because I don't want to smoke anymore. So I think for me, the biggest kind of positive things was starting to enjoy like food and music. After that, I was like, okay, so I I'm getting better, and I'm also enjoying the things I used to enjoy, not in the same way because I've experienced a different experience, but enough for me to not want to go back and smoke. So yeah, for me
And
that
was
was
that
like the biggest thing that was positive for me. And
and was it at the point, like it sounds like it was kind of after the withdrawals you made up your mind like, okay, I don't want to go back and smoke because of this, or did it take a little bit longer post withdrawals for you to get to a point where you're like, okay, yeah, I'm good not smoking again? Um like yeah, like at
no,
what
I think
point?
for me,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, sorry, for me, I think because of the intensity of the withdrawals that I experienced, I think it really put me off cannabis. It really just made me not want to experience anything like that again. So, as I was going through the withdrawals, I think that's where my decision was made that I'm just not going to smoke again. And even before, enjoying food again and in having an appetite again and listening to music again, I hadn't gotten to that point yet, but I just knew that I don't want to smoke. I don't want to do this anymore. So because I was reading, because I read a lot. So I was doing research and finding out. And I actually watched one of your videos where you say, before you relapse, watch this. So I actually watched a couple of your videos, and I was like, it's not worth it. It's really not worth it, because I've done all of this work to not smoke, and I know I really want to smoke so badly. And I felt guilty also. I started feeling guilty when I used to smoke. So the guilt was also overwhelming. So it just wasn't worth it when I was thinking about it and thinking, I'm chasing a certain experience, but the fact is that I'm probably not going to have that experience when I'm high, because so many things that I'm experiencing are no longer enjoyable. So, yeah. So, thank you for making these videos, because truly I can attest that I've watched it and it did deter me from smoking, because I was just like, man, I really want to smoke, but man, this makes so much sense. So, I needed to use like my higher self to just accept the truth that I am addicted and I need to work through it. Just a
Well,
second.
go ahead. No worries. Go ahead. So
Where
this
were
is where,
we?
yeah, good question, right? So this is where, listen, I just wanted to say to you, this has been
Mm.
such a great conversation. And I don't know what you're up to now and stuff like that, but it's really a pleasure speaking to you and hearing your story. And like, you're just a very, you're like animated. You're just really a pleasure to speak to. And I hope that everything is going well for you now. This is off
Thanks.
the record outside of the interview. I might repeat some of that again, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I just
It's
wanted
actually
to
quite
say that.
interesting that you're saying that. Well, thank you. I'm actually in the middle of a transition. I'm moving out of home today.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
I'm, yeah, I'm moving out today because of, well, a lot of things, but yeah, so actually just a lot that's happening. But again, I don't know about you, but I believe in God. I really do.
Yes.
And I feel like everything is divinely orchestrated and divinely ordained. So, yeah, I don't know what's next for me now, because I want to go to school. I want to go back to school to study as a psychologist, actually,
Yes.
because I want to normalize mental health within like Black people. So I want to go into like schools and speak to people. And yeah, so I've actually found my purpose throughout this whole kind of experience. And I never knew what I wanted to be or what my calling was. But through just everything that I've gone through, I've discovered what actually I need to do in my life. And I'm thankful for that above everything else. So, yeah.
I really, really hope that you pursue that and stuff like that. And even if the schools and some of that doesn't work out, I'm telling you, even if with you, if you just start talking, you're gonna get traction and people are gonna listen and they're gonna appreciate what you're saying. And I'll tell you, even just with that authority, you'd be
Yeah.
able to go do a million things with that. Now, of course, getting credentialed and doing it,
Yeah.
the proper way doesn't hurt anything. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I really think this is just going to work out well for you. Listen, I'm just going to keep talking. If you're okay with it, actually, I'd like to keep this
Yeah.
part. That was awesome. If you're okay with that commentary in here,
Yeah. You can keep it. It's just that I kind of okay, maybe in about, because I'll
you got to
leave
go.
at, because I
Yeah.
need to go. Yeah, I need to go.
Listen,
So
I was I
I
was
don't
gonna
know. Yeah. So
I was going to
mhm.
ask you if quitting was worth it and if you felt there was value in it. And you already answered the last question and just that little conversation that we had there
Yeah.
that I said I was going to edit out,
Yeah.
which I think we should keep if you're okay with. So
Yeah.
honestly, all I'd say is
Yeah. Sure.
it was a pleasure
Yeah.
interviewing you. And by all means, please stay in touch if you want to with us. And if you ever
Mhm.
want to come on here again and talk about on my channel mental health and even within the Black community and whatnot, and we can parlay that back to substance use or other things, I'd be happy to help you get a platform in any way possible because you were such a pleasure to speak with. And that's it. That's all I would have to say. Otherwise, I'd say good luck with your move today. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And definitely, I would say for me personally, quitting was necessary. And whoever maybe smokes weed because of emotional issues or past traumas, I would encourage them to find healing the natural way, not natural way in sense, but in the healthiest way with a professional. And yeah, just being aware that whatever it is that you went through, you need someone else to professionally help you walk through your emotions, your feelings. You can use weed for a while, but it's not a long term solution for any mental health issues a person has. So I would definitely say that. And thank you for having me. I think also this talk was maybe cathartic in a way. And if anything, I actually like this because I feel like it's going to hold me accountable because I've said that I'm not going to smoke. So I can't now smoke when I've just said that I'm not going to do it. And there's like an interview as evidence of me no longer smoking. So I like this. And it's a good way to also hold myself accountable and to continue with my decision and choice to no longer smoke. And yeah, I'll speak about my experiences. I'll speak about a lot of things because I agree. I definitely have a lot of things that I feel like I want to say. And because I've also I'm learning to kind of walk in my authenticity and kind of just no longer caring what people say about me. So I don't know, weed for me or cannabis and everything that I've gone through during that time has been so transformational and just life changing actually. So I'm thankful for it, and I'm also thankful that I'm off it. So yeah.
That is wonderful. And I don't want to say anything else because it's such a beautiful ending, aside from, if you ever want to come back, if you ever need help with anything, you know where to find me, and I'd always be happy to have you back on the channel again, for whatever topics that may
Yeah,
be.
I'd love to.
Thank you. Thank you really for your time today and stuff, Lebo. Fast now. Okay. We
Okay.
can stop it there. That's good. Now I'll literally end it. This time I'll really end it there.